What happens when a luxury store clerk mocks a quiet man for looking too poor to afford a high-end watch, not realizing he's talking to Keanu Reeves? What begins as a moment of arrogance turns into a lesson that the entire store and millions online would never forget. Because when Keanu walks in wearing jeans and a backpack, he isn't looking for attention. He's looking for something much deeper. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why true class has nothing to do with money and everything to do with character. Oh, and before we continue, tell us where you are watching from. We love reading your comments and seeing how far these stories travel. The luxury watch store was a sanctuary of silence and refinement. Dark wood walls, soft lighting, and gleaming display cases created an atmosphere of prestige. Every watch glimmered, as if it knew its worth and expected you to know it too. Marina stood behind the main counter, dressed in a beige blazer, her hair neatly tied in a tight bun. She was browsing inventory on her tablet when the soft chime of the door announced a new customer. She looked up and almost rolled her eyes. Worn jeans, a plain black t-shirt, a motorcycle helmet in one hand, and a backpack slung over one shoulder, the man stepped inside slowly, calm and observant. His long, slightly wavy hair fell past his shoulders, and his scruffy beard gave him the look of someone who had seen much and needed to prove nothing. Marina studied him like a software glitch. "Good afternoon," she said, forcing a professional smile. "Can I help you with something?" "Good afternoon," the man replied, his voice calm and warm. "I'm just browsing for now." She nodded but kept her eyes on him. He approached one of the display cases and paused in front of a limited edition Swiss timepiece. Skeleton dial, leather strap, white gold accents, one of the most expensive pieces in the store. Marina raised an eyebrow. "That's a limited model, Bo," she said casually. "Anniversary collection, very exclusive." He smiled faintly, eyes fixed on the watch. "It's beautiful. I like seeing how the mechanisms work together. Feels alive." She crossed her arms lightly. "Yes, well, these are highly technical pieces, and of course, very expensive." The subtext was as clear as glass, but the man didn't react. He simply kept admiring the watch with quiet fascination. "Would you like to know the price?" Marina asked, her tone laced with polite disbelief. "Just curious," he replied without looking at her. She let out a light chuckle, the kind people use when they think they're above someone. He didn't belong here, and she wanted to make sure he knew that. Behind the counter, Marina's colleague Julia watched with barely concealed amusement. They exchanged a silent glance, the kind of look that speaks volumes between people who think they're in control. The man moved on to another case. His eyes landed on a deep blue dial watch with hand-carved Roman numerals. "This one's automatic, right?" he asked, now turning to Marina directly. She hesitated for a second. It was a technical question. "A precise one, sir." "Yes, caliber 3135, Swiss movement. One of the most reliable. What's the power reserve?" She paused again. "Around 48 hours. Why do you ask?" "Because the rotor sounds bidirectional. But I noticed the hum is slightly off." Julia frowned. Marina's throat tightened. "Do you know watches?" she asked, now slightly unsettled. "A little," he said with a smile. "I like learning." Something about the way he spoke made her uncomfortable. His appearance screamed out of place, but his knowledge, it didn't match. It challenged her assumptions. "Do you work in the industry?" she asked, testing him. "Not exactly." "Are you a collector?" He shrugged. "Sometimes, but today I'm not buying for myself." That sentence hung in the air for a moment. Marina stepped forward, trying to reclaim control. "Well, if you're looking for a gift, we do have simpler models, elegant, good value, more accessible." He looked at her. His eyes were calm, almost sad, but there was something steady behind them, like he saw more than he said. "You don't think I can afford this one?" The question was asked so softly, so serenely, it struck deeper than if he had raised his voice. Marina paused, her face flushed slightly, but she didn't drop the mask. "Don't take it personally," she said, smiling with her lips, not her eyes. "It's just, this kind of piece isn't for everyone." He was silent for a moment, and then he smiled, a quiet, knowing smile. "Interesting," he said simply. The silence in the store thickened. Julia shifted behind the counter. A well-dressed couple entering the store paused, sensed the tension, and turned around. Marina stood tall, still believing she had the upper hand, still thinking she was dealing with someone ordinary, someone who'd soon walk away quietly. She had no idea that this anyone was about to teach her one of the most valuable lessons of her life. Marina gave him a sarcastic smile and asked, "Are you sure you walked into the right store? These watches aren't for just anyone." What she didn't know was that this anyone was about to teach her one of the most valuable lessons of her life. Marina returned to her position behind the counter, heels clicking sharply on the polished floor. Her smile vanished the second her back was turned. "Did you see that?" she whispered to Julia. "The guy dissecting movement calibers like he owns a factory with a backpack and helmet." Julia smirked. "Maybe he watched a YouTube video and thinks he's a watchmaker now." They both laughed softly, not with cruelty, but with that quiet kind of mockery that only happens when someone's certain they're superior. Meanwhile, the bun, still browsing, still unbothered, moved to another display. This one showcased collector's pieces, rare, often made to order, each worth more than a small car. He paused in front of a sleek, dark chronograph with moon phase complications and a deep sapphire dial. Marina stepped closer again, still trying to maintain the performance of helpful professionalism. "That one's not for sale," she lied. "It's on hold for a client." The man nodded. "Shame, it's a beautiful piece." He didn't challenge her, didn't raise his voice, didn't even seem disappointed. That made it worse. He continued walking along the displays, hands behind his back, as if in a gallery. There was something about his posture, relaxed but attentive, that threw Marina off balance. He didn't fidget, didn't look intimidated. He was just present, too calm. "Is there a particular brand you are interested in?" she asked, voice crisp. "I'm looking for a gift," he replied. "Something special, something timeless." "And what's your budget?" she asked bluntly, letting the weight of the question hang in the air. He turned to her with a gentle smile. "Let's just say I'm not worried about that part." Before she could respond, another customer entered the store, a man in a tailored suit with a heavy watch already on his wrist. Marina immediately switched tones. "Good afternoon, Mr. Hargrove," she said, glowing. "We just received the new models I told you about." She left Keanu standing alone and crossed the floor to greet the suited man like royalty. For a few minutes, she fawned, offered espresso, opened display cases with gloved hands. From across the room, the man in the black shirt waited patiently. When she returned to him, her smile had turned to routine boredom. "Still browsing?" she asked. He nodded. "Actually, I'd like to see that one again." He pointed to the first Swiss model he had admired. Marina hesitated, glanced at his boots, dusty from the road. "Are you serious about this piece?" "Yes," he replied. She exchanged a look with Julia, then unlocked the case and pulled the watch out slowly. As if expecting him to drop it, she placed it on the tray in front of him. He picked it up with reverence, the way some people handle old books or newborns. His thumb ran over the crown, the sapphire crystal. He examined the back, nodding slowly. "It's a gift?" Marina asked, unable to hide her doubt. "Yes," he said, "for someone special." He looked up, eyes warm. "Very." That answer stirred something in her, but she didn't quite know what. Still, she smirked. "Well, I hope they appreciate it. This piece cost more than your old motorcycle." She said it loud enough for others to hear. Julia chuckled from behind the counter. "Mr." Hargrove looked over briefly, amused, but the man didn't flinch. He simply smiled. A small, patient smile that unsettled Marina far more than any outburst would have. "You may be right," he said softly, "but then again, maybe not." And with that, he turned his attention back to the watch, leaving Marina frozen in her smugness. It was then that a strange silence crept over the store. Julia stopped tapping her screen. The suited client turned slightly toward the man as if sensing something was off. No one knew what was coming next, but the shift had begun. "That watch cost more than your old motorcycle," Marina said loudly for everyone to hear. Keanu just smiled, but what he did next would leave the entire store speechless. For a few seconds, the store felt like it was holding its breath. The man with the backpack and long hair placed the watch back on the tray delicately, with respect, and looked at Marina, not with anger, not even disappointment, just calm. "Could I see the movement again?" he asked. Marina blinked him. "Excuse me?" "The case back, it's see-through, isn't it? I'd like to get a better look at the movement." Something about his voice, quiet but firm, made her obey before thinking. She picked up the watch and flipped it gently, holding it closer. He leaned in slightly. That rotor engraving, is it hand-done or laser-etched? She hesitated. Laser. Shame the older models had hand engraving, less perfect, but more human. He said it with a hint of nostalgia in his tone, as if he'd actually held one before. Maybe he had. Marina didn't know how to respond. Her usual rhythm, the dance of control she mastered so well, was faltering. He continued, not mocking, not showing off, just talking. This crown here, triple sealed system? She nodded slowly. And the power reserve is 48 hours, but you can push it to 50 if it's fully wound, right? Yes, she replied quietly. Impressive. It's a beautiful machine. Then he looked up and met her eyes again. And beautiful machines deserve to be treated with respect, don't you think? Marina felt a lump form in her throat. It wasn't the question. It was the way he asked, not to challenge, but to remind. He placed the watch back down and took a slow breath. I'd like to purchase it. The sentence came like thunder in a room of stillness. Marina blinked again. What? I said I'd like to purchase it. He pulled a slim black wallet from his back pocket. No flourish, no flash of cards, just confidence in full. No financing? She hesitated then. Without a word, she walked toward the register. Julia watched in silence, her earlier smirk erased. Do you need it gift wrapped? Marina asked flatly. Yes, but not for me. She paused again. Is it a birthday? He gave a small smile. Not exactly. He didn't explain further. Something about his tone silenced further questions. While Marina wrapped the box in silver paper and tied it with a dark blue ribbon, the man stood quietly, hands folded, eyes resting on a display. He didn't look at his phone, didn't pace, just waited. When the box was ready, she slid it across the counter. He reached for it, then stopped. Actually, he said, I should tell you why I chose this one. Marina looked up, bracing for something strange, but what came next was something she never expected. It's for a boy I met during filming, he began. A young fan diagnosed with a rare condition. He had one wish, to visit a movie set. Marina froze, the color slowly draining from her face. He didn't want photos or autographs. He just wanted to talk about stories, about heroes, about time. We had lunch in my trailer. He asked if I ever felt afraid of time slipping away. He paused. I think about that a lot now. Marina didn't move. I told him time is a gift, and he told me that if he ever got better, he'd save up and buy a real watch, a beautiful one, a grown-up one. The man ran his hand over the wrapped box. He didn't get that chance. Silence. So I'm buying it for him anyway. I'll leave it with his parents in a note. Another pause. Because time still matters, even when someone's gone. Marina's throat tightened. Julia looked away, blinking rapidly. The store was silent. And then he did something that turned everything upside down. He placed the box gently on the counter and stepped back. You know, he said softly, maybe this isn't the right place to buy it after all. Marina's eyes widened. What? I came here to find a gift, but instead I was studied, judged, talked down to. He wasn't angry, he was simply stating facts. So maybe this watch shouldn't come from here. Marina opened her mouth, but no words came. He picked up the box slowly, turned, and began walking toward the door. Half the store seemed to lean forward. Breath caught, and then the door opened, and a voice called out, Keanu! Everyone turned. A man in a tailored navy suit stood at the entrance, smiling in disbelief. Keanu Reeves, my God, I didn't know you were in town. The long-haired man smiled warmly. Hey, Matt, good to see you. The suited man rushed in, shaking his hand. You still ride that Triumph? You haven't aged a day. The silence in the store turned electric. Marina's mouth went dry. Julia's hand trembled on the tablet. Matt turned to the others. This guy, he said laughing, is the most generous human I've ever met. Total legend. Keanu gave a modest nod. Marina stared at him like she was seeing him for the first time because she was. And suddenly every assumption she made unraveled in an instant. As the suited man shook Keanu's hand, the store fell silent. Marina stood frozen, the color draining from her face, and the manager, watching from a distance, finally stepped forward, pale as the display lights. He had just realized who they had been speaking to. The manager had been watching from behind a mirrored wall, half distracted by stock reports on his phone. But the moment he heard the name Keanu, something clicked. He stepped out from the back, stiff and pale, adjusting his tie as if trying to compose himself on the way. His shoes tapped quickly across the polished floor. "Mr. Reeves," he said, breathless, I, I didn't realize you were here. Please forgive the delay." Keanu turned calm as ever. "No problem." But there was weight in those two words, the kind of weight that silences a room. Marina took a step back. She was still holding the gift receipt. Her fingers had gone cold. Matt, the suited man who had greeted Keanu with such familiarity, looked at Marina, then back at Keanu. "They didn't know who you were, eh, no?" he asked, half laughing, half shocked. Keanu shrugged. "Wasn't relevant." The manager gave Marina a sharp look, one that said, "Fix this now." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. "Is everything all right, sir?" the manager asked. "We'd be honored to complete your purchase with a discount, of course." Keanu glanced at the gift-wrapped box still in his hand. "I wasn't planning on asking for favors." The sentence wasn't angry, but it hit like a blade all around the store. The energy shifted. Customers who had looked at Keanu with disdain now stared at him in silence, some adjusting their posture, others simply froze, replaying the last few minutes in their minds, embarrassed for themselves. Matt, meanwhile, laughed under his breath and turned to the room. "You all don't know what kind of man this is. This guy once gave up his hotel suite just so the crew could rest properly after a 16-hour shoot, and the stories are endless." Julia's expression twisted slightly. She looked at Marina, panic blooming in her eyes. Marina, still frozen, tried to recover. I I didn't know. I didn't recognize." Keanu raised a hand gently, stopping her mid-sentence. "It's not about being recognized." He stepped forward, voice still even, still kind, but loaded with truth. "It's about how you treat people when you think they're nobody." That line sliced through the air. A few customers shifted uncomfortably. The manager cleared his throat. "Let me personally handle the transaction, and of course, we'll offer you anything else you might like to see." Keanu looked at him, thoughtful. "You know," he said, lowering the box onto the counter, "I didn't come in here to test anyone. I just wanted a gift." He tapped the ribbon once. "But I got something else instead." Everyone waited. Perspective. He let the word hang, looking at Marina again, not with cruelty, but with something far more unsettling, quiet disappointment. Marina finally found her voice. "Mr. Reeves, I truly didn't mean to." "You don't need to explain," he interrupted. "You already did every time you spoke to me." The manager looked ready to melt into the floor. He glanced at Marina, then at Julia. This doesn't reflect our standards." Keanu gave a small smile, the kind you give when you're used to hearing that phrase. "I'm sure." So, a silence took over again, the kind of silence that doesn't come from shock, but from shame. Marina stood still, her hands trembled, her face flushed with heat. It wasn't just that she had misjudged someone, it was that she had done it so confidently, in public, and now everyone could see it. One of the younger clients near the back whispered something to his friend. "That's John Wick," and she tried to tell him he couldn't afford a watch. The humiliation wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It was quiet, deep, public, and complete. Just then the door opened again. Another man walked in, sharp suit, sunglasses, phone in hand. He looked around, then locked eyes with Keanu. "There you are," he said, smiling. "I've been trying to find you all afternoon. We still on for tonight?" Keanu nodded and the man approached, shaking his hand. "Sorry, who are you?" the manager asked carefully. "Oh, I'm the director of Arcadia. We're in town scouting. Mr. Reeves is meeting the producers later." The manager turned pale, a second high-profile connection, and the story just kept growing. The director turned to Keanu and joked, "Man, you're always undercover. First time we met, you showed up on set with a sandwich and a busted skateboard." Keanu smiled. Marina, at that moment, could barely breathe. She had been cruel, dismissive, and sarcastic to someone who wasn't just important, but someone who had never once acted like he was. The director looked at the box on the counter. "That for a fan?" Keanu nodded. "A special one." The director's face softened. You're too good, man. Keanu turned back to the counter. For a moment, everyone thought he would leave. But then he looked at Marina one last time, not to shame her, not to gloat, but to offer her the same thing he had given the boy that day in his trailer. Time to reflect, time to change. The regional manager stepped into the store moments later. After listening to what happened, she looked Marina in the eyes and said, "You've just damaged the reputation of the most respected store in the city, and now you'll have to face the consequences. I came here like this, dressed down, not to test anyone, but to see how people act when they think you're nobody." The air shifted. Marina looked down, ashamed. "The way we treat strangers says everything," Keanu added. "And what I experienced here today, that wasn't kindness." Vivian cleared her throat, trying to salvage the moment. "Please, allow us to make this right. A discount, a gesture." Keanu raised a hand. "I'm not here for a deal." He turned to Marina. "But maybe someone here needs a second chance." To her surprise, he placed the box gently back on the counter. "You can finish the sale if you want." Marina blinked, speechless. "You still want to buy it?" "Yes, from someone who's learned something." Hands trembling, she processed the sale quietly and handed him the receipt. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Keanu gave her a kind look. "It's not too late to change." Then he turned to leave, but stopped at the door. "By the way," he added casually, "that motorcycle outside, the old one?" Marina glanced up. "Prototype, custom build, worth more than any watch in this store." He gave a half smile. "Didn't think that mattered until now." And with that, he walked out, silent, powerful, unforgettable. Back in the store, silence reigned. But by the next morning, a video of the encounter had gone viral, and soon the world would see Keanu Reeves, not as a star, but as a man who quietly changed everything. The next morning, the video was everywhere. A customer had filmed the encounter, the sarcasm, the judgment, and Keanu Reeves' quiet, graceful response. By midday, it had gone viral. The caption read, "She laughed at Keanu Reeves for looking too poor to buy a watch. She didn't know who she was talking to." Thousands of comments poured in. "This is why you never judge someone by appearance. Class isn't in your clothes, it's in how you treat people." Keanu, always Keanu. Inside the store, the atmosphere was tense. What was once a proud, exclusive showroom now felt like a courtroom. Marina sat in the back office, pale and silent, eyes red from a sleepless night. Her phone was flooded with messages, some angry, others mocking. A few were worse, people calling for her to be fired, canceled, humiliated. But the real punishment wasn't online, it was in the silence of her coworkers. Julia, once her partner in sarcasm, now avoided eye contact. The manager wouldn't look at her. Clients came in and whispered. Some only came to see the place where it happened. The regional manager, Vivian, held a team meeting that afternoon. Her tone was sharp, calm but cold. What happened yesterday wasn't just a PR failure. It was a human failure. Marina's throat closed. "We don't train people to act based on celebrities," Vivian continued. "We train them to treat everyone with dignity." She paced slowly in front of the staff. "You didn't fail because you didn't recognize a famous face. You failed because you saw a man and decided he wasn't worth your full respect." Julia shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Vivian turned to her. "That goes for anyone who watched it happen and said nothing." Julia lowered her eyes. Marina swallowed hard. Her voice came out small. "I didn't mean to hurt him. I thought he was just—" Vivian cut in. "A man with a backpack, long hair, motorcycle helmet." Silence. "That man raised the standard of how we treat others, without yelling, without revenge, and he did it with more class than most of us showed." The room was silent. Then Vivian looked straight at Marina. "You've damaged the reputation of the most respected store in the city, and now you'll face the consequences." Marina's voice cracked. "Am I being fired?" Vivian paused. "You're being held accountable." She handed Marina a folder. Inside, a formal reprimand, mandatory training, and a temporary suspension without pay. "What you do after this will define who you really are." Marina nodded slowly, shame heavy on her shoulders. As she gathered her things, the world outside the store kept buzzing. News outlets picked up the story. Journalists praised Keanu's calm. Public figures reposted the video with captions like, "The world doesn't need louder voices, it needs better hearts." But Keanu himself, he said nothing. He didn't post. He didn't comment. He had made a statement through action. A few days later, a package arrived at the store addressed to Marina. No return name, just a small square envelope. She opened it with trembling hands. Inside, a note in neat, careful handwriting. Everyone has a moment where they choose who they'll be from now on. Luxury isn't about price, it's about presence. The way you show up for others, especially when no one's watching. KR. Attached to the note, a gift card for coffee and a post-it with just two words, start again. The next week, a customer watched Marina gently assist an elderly man trying on a watch. She smiled, patient and kind. On her wrist, a small card was tucked like a reminder. Luxury is how we treat each other. Keanu Reeves had walked into a store and been treated like he was less. He walked out without shouting, without revenge, without a scene, but with impact, he reminded everyone. Watching in person or online that kindness doesn't have to be loud to be powerful, and that true luxury, it's not gold or diamonds or branding, it's how you make someone feel. And have you ever judged someone too fast or been judged before someone knew your worth? Maybe it's time we all slow down. Maybe the world needs a little more of the quiet strength of people like Keanu.